Hi there, this is Elizabeth, and I'm going to show you how to make this simple pendant. And I'll go ahead and show you all the supplies you'll need and the tools you'll need to complete the pendant. First thing you're going to need 3 9-inch 20-gauge square wires. You're also going to need about 3 inches of a half-round wire, that's 21 gauge. You're going to need an 18 by 13 millimeter cabochon, and 18 being long, 13 being wide. You're also going to need 28 gauge weaving wire. As far as tools, you're going to need chain nose pliers, flush cutters, round nose pliers, and optional nylon pliers. Those are good for not nicking your wire. The other thing you're going to need, which I totally forgot, you're going to need 3 millimeter copper beads, at least one, to put on your pendant. Alright, let's begin. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put the 3 base wires together and make sure that they are straight. And then we're going to wrap the half-round wire around the base wires. You just want to make sure that that flat side is against the wire and the round side is on the outside. Alright, just keep your wire straight. We're going to go ahead and wrap the wire around. And we're going to wrap it around 5 times. You can do more or less depending on what you're looking for, but I tend to do around 5. You can do more. Right. Just make sure you're keeping those wires straight. Half round can be kind of fiddly, so keeping them straight really helps to keep that from twisting too much. Then we're going to go ahead and trim off the excess. Alright, and from there we're going to go ahead and tuck in those burrs. But before we do that, we just want to make sure that it is at the center of the wires. So I just kind of do a test, quick test. It doesn't have to be exactly center, but the more the merrier. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and tuck in that excess there. Make sure that those are tucked in, so that's going to be the inside of the frame. We want it tucked in and we want it to be flat against the wire so it doesn't catch on anything. Alright, next so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the chain nose just off center to the right and fold the wires, bend the wires to about 45-50 degree angle. Should have a nice point. Just like so. And then we're going to go ahead and bring it around, bring it down where the cabochon sits just at the bottom. There's going to be a little bit gap at the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and bend these wires to either side. And there's going to be a little bit of a gap on top as well. I'm just going to check and make sure that it fits. And you may have to play with the wires and adjust them just a little bit. Make sure that your cabochon fits well. Looking good. Alright, now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take the wires and we're going to go ahead and bend them where the top meets each other. Side and this side. We want those wires to be sticking straight up. We don't want them off too far to the side, so I'm going to bring that one back over. Okay. Just go ahead and adjust the wires a little bit, just so that both sides are even, or at least as even as I can get them. Go ahead and put the stone in there again, just to make sure it fits. Looks good to me. And this process can take a little bit of time. Just adjust it until you get it to where you want it. Alright, now that we have those all bent up where they need to be, we're going to go ahead and take this back wire. We're going to take a weaving wire, a 28 gauge weaving wire. I'm going to unspool it a little bit. Then we're going to take the back wire here. As you can see, it's the very back wire. And I'm going to put the weaving wire down into the back there, kind of in between all the wires, just as a starting point, and I'm going to weave up this wire. So we're going to go around it 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and gather all of these wires together. And we're going to wrap around 3 times around all of the wires. Like so. Then we're going to come back to that same wire we wrapped around at the beginning and wrap around it again twice. Okay, and now we're going to go around the 2 back wires, as you can see. We're going to wrap around both of those twice. Okay. And scooting down the wire as you go. Okay. And sometimes you gotta spread out these wires just a little bit. Right, now we're going to go around that one twice more. Right. And then back around both wires twice. Just always scooting the wire down. And keep those as even as you possibly can. So as you can see, the pattern is 2 around 1, 2 around both, 2 around 1, 2 around both. And that'll give you a nice, easy pattern to start with. This is going to be our veil. Move these other wires out of the way too. That'll help you see, and as you can see, we're starting to get a nice little weave in here. I'm going to go ahead and continue weaving. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and continue this pattern. And we're going to do it 14 to 15 rotations. So that's 2 around 1, 2 around 2, and that's 1 rotation. Alright, now that we have made it, our 14, 15 rotations, we're going to go ahead and make sure the wire is even. We're going to take it, we're going to bend it over to the left. Alright, and then we're going to start curving around the top to form the veil. And this should have a decent curve to it. And just tweak it as much as you need to. And now we're going to go ahead and separate these wires here. These 4 base wires we're going to separate, and then we're going to twist them to give a nice effect to the wire. This is square wire. We just take our chain nose pliers, and we're going to go ahead and twist the wire, like so. Now there is a tool that you can use for this. I honestly cannot remember the name of the tool. I just do it the old school way and just use these tools. If I remember to find it, I'll go ahead and add a link to the video below. We're just going to go ahead and keep twisting, and twisting, and twisting. Also, just to note, if you're using round wire, you will not want to do this. This will make the wire either harder or make it more frail and brittle. So just with square wire, and it doesn't have to be twisted too much either. Alright, now that I got them all twisted up, I'm going to take these 2 left wires and set them to the side. And then I'm going to work with these 2 right wires. And I'm going to start by scooping the furthest right wire. And I'm going to scoop it over the woven wire, just underneath the 2 straight base wires that were just woven together. Now we're going to take this wire, and we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to go over the top of the wire we just curved over. And using your fingernail, you can kind of shape it a little bit as you're moving it over. And this is going to give us 4 base wires to now weave together. The 2 twisted should be on the bottom, and the 2 straight on top. Now from here, we're going to take this weaving wire, and we're going to go ahead and weave from the bottom. Just make sure that these wires are as straight as you can get them before you do that, though. Nothing worse than tangled up wire. Alright, now that you have them kind of straightened up to where you want them, we're going to go ahead and weave around the bottom 2 wires, the 2 twisted wires here. So once, right, and then we're going to do twice. So there's our first one, here it is. So those 2 bottom wires are now woven together. And now we're going to go between the bottom wire and the second wire here, and we're going to go ahead and wrap the 2 middle wires, the 1 straight and the 1 twisted wire. So one time, make sure the wires are straight. Now we're going back around the 2 middle ones. Okay, so now we have 2 there. Now we're going to go between the 2 twisted wires and the 2 straight wires, and we're going to weave over those top, well, bottom, from where you're looking at, bottom straight wires. Like so. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and weave those 2 again, and we're going to basically repeat the process, and we're going to repeat this pattern over and over. So the pattern is 2 over the bottom 2, 2 over the middle, 2 over the top, if you're looking at the pendant from the top. So it's going to just repeat the same pattern over and over. And you'll probably want to do that until you reach about 1.25 inches. And be sure to take your time. The more time you take, the better your weave is going to be. So just don't get in a rush, just take your time. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and do another 1.25 inches worth of those rotations. Alright, now that we have made it all the way down, we're going to go ahead and start bending this wire a little bit and give it some curve. And this is going to curve over the top of the cabochon. Just make sure your base wires are straight and just gently bend them over to the side like so. Now we're just going to check our cabochon fits in there. The frame might warp a little bit, especially when you're twisting the wires, but that can be adjusted. Now from here, we're going to go ahead and make a back for the pendant so the cabochon can sit in there. We're going to take this back base wire and we're going to bend it in. Now we're just going to check and make sure that the cabochon fits there. And as you can see here, there's not quite enough surface area on the back, so we're going to go ahead and bend that wire back in a little bit, and this will help support the cabochon from the back. Now we're going to go ahead and take these base wires out here on top, and we're going to mold them basically over the top of the cabochon, and this is what's going to hold the cabochon in place. And as you can see, there's not quite enough weaving wire down here, so I'm going to go ahead and weave a few more of those rotations. And when I get to the bottom where I feel like it's long enough, I'll secure the wire. And the best way to secure the wire is basically just to wrap onto one of those base wires 3 times, and that'll help prevent the wire from slipping off or coming off. Now we're going to cut off the excess of that weaving wire, and we're going to start bending it over the top and the side there. And just making adjustments as we go. We just want to make sure that cabochon stays in its spot. We don't want it wiggling and falling out. Now we have a firm cabochon, and we can move on to the next step. Now we're going to bend up these back base wires. We're going to go ahead and cut off the excess. And we're just going to want to leave a little bit so that we can tuck it into the back here, between that little gap between the cabochon and the tip of the pendant. So using your chain nose pliers, you're going to gently tuck in those wires. Just be mindful of the weaving wire on top. Too much bending these wires and playing with the top, it can sever the other weaving wire, so just be careful. And from here we may need to adjust our weaving wire a little bit. You can use your chain nose pliers to do that, or you can use your fingernails, but chain nose pliers work best for me. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and work with these 2 wires here. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to go ahead and bend it over the top, and we're going to bend it over the top of this weave, like so. Once we kind of get it where we want it, we're going to go ahead and take it and we're going to wrap it around the back. Just being very careful not to warp the swirl on top too much. And then we're going to bend it around towards the front. And then we're going to follow this weave down the bottom. Just do our best with our fingers to kind of mold it as well. We just want it to be as close as we can to the weaving. Alright, now once we get it into place, we're going to bend it, that last bit, towards the back. And we'll cut off the excess here, and we're going to also tuck it into that same gap that we did the other wires. And at this point you can make adjustments to make sure that wire sits as closely as we can get it. We also don't want it coming untucked. So just situate the wire where you think it's going to fit best and not snag on anything. from here we're going to go ahead and work this other wire. We're going to bend it all over the top of the other wire here, a little bit off to the side, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it around the same direction as we did the other wire. Alright, now we're wrapping it towards the front as well. Just make sure that wire goes underneath the other wire, because you're going to want it in front of the other wire once we get it around to the other side. Alright, from here we're going to go ahead and cut off a little bit of this end. Now this part is more up to you, it's more freestyle. I like to put a little swirl on this side, so I'm going to grab my round nose pliers. I'm going to take this end here and I'm going to start making a swirl. Sorry, I'm trying to keep it on camera, but kind of hard to see. Alright, so we have our little swirl, so we're going to bring it around. And that's looking like a little bit of a too big of a swirl for me, so I'm going to go ahead and shorten that a little bit. Like I said, this is more of a freestyle moment. This is something that you get to do on your own and kind of decide the size of your swirl. I think that's about where I like it, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust this a little bit so that way it doesn't come untucked. At this point you can also add some weaving wire in to kind of secure the swirl, but if you tuck it in well enough, it's not going to snag on anything. Alright, from here is where we get our 3mm bead. So I'm going to grab one of my little copper beads here. And I'm also going to cut off a piece of weaving wire. And it could be about 3 to 4 inches long. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick it between that little gap on the top. And I'm going to secure it to one of the back base wires over here. And I found a little bit of weaving wire back here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off this excess and tuck in that end there. I'm going to go ahead and try to wrap this wire around this back base wire. This is the same wire that we bent in order to hold the cabochon. And to secure it, we're going to go ahead and try wrapping it about 3 times. So this is kind of the tricky part. So using your chain nose pliers can be very helpful, especially if you don't have nails like I do to really grab anything. So using those chain nose pliers to really help direct the wire and to pull it from those tie spaces is really helpful. Now as you can see, we still have this end out here, so we're going to go ahead and string on our 3mm copper bead. It's going to sit about there, and then we're going to go ahead and take this wire and we're going to go ahead and go through that same gap and secure to the other side on the other base wire. And like I said, this is a more tedious process, so just take your time, and it might be kind of frustrating, but you'll get the hang of it. And like I said, just use those chain nose pliers. They will really help you in getting those tight spaces. Just make sure that your bead is as tight as you can kind of get it against that side there before you start securing your wire. Alright, once you've cut off the excess, just tuck in that wire, and that should be good to go, and there you go, your little bead is secure. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my 18 gauge wire here. If you have a jump ring on you, you can go ahead and just put it on the jump ring, but I don't usually have them, I usually make my own. So I'm going to go ahead and take these round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a jump ring. And making a jump ring is pretty easy. Sorry it's not on the camera, but all you need to do is just wrap a loop. You're going to take your flush cutters and you can use that flat end to cut, and then you use the flat end on the other side to cut, so that way you have flat ends on both sides. And there you have it, you've made a jump ring. And there you have it. You have your little pendant. Congratulations, you've made it this far. Also be sure to subscribe to my channel and to subscribe to my blog list, and that way you can get updates on future tutorials. Cheers!